Today is Wednesday, February 14th. What better gift than Donna's truffles that are made individually with love and care? Valentine's Day is a special day for everyone, especially when we have a romantic partner whom we're trying to impress. Give it a little thought. When it comes to Valentine's Day candies, nothing is more impressive than an elegant box of artisan handmade truffles of Donna's Truffles. These chocolate gourmet treats will melt their hearts the moment the flavor explodes in their mouth as they bite into that first piece. We can mix and match all your loved one's favorite flavors to give it that personal touch. Don't forget to surprise your family members and all the friends you love as well. With Donna's Truffles, they'll all feel special that you remembered them with an elegant gift and know that they are loved by you. Ask Alexa for Donna's Truffles. Google Donna's Truffles at donnastruffles.com. For more info, it's 951-682-2091. That's 951-682-2091.
Tired of paying outrageous prices for Viagra? Well, we have great news for you. Now you can finally get Viagra at huge discounts. Healthy Man allows you to save up to $500 on Viagra. Why pay U.S. pharmacy prices of $15 per pill or more when you can get Viagra for less than $3 a pill? Call today and get 40 Viagra pills for only $99. This can cost as much as $600 at your local pharmacy. You can't afford not to call us. If you want Viagra at the lowest prices, never pay $15 a pill pharmacy prices again. Get Viagra for less than $3 a pill. Call 1-800-643-6931 today and save up to $500 and get 40 pills for just $99. Healthy Man is fast, easy, and affordable. Operators are waiting at 1-800-643-6931 to take your call now. Call 1-800-643-6931. That's 1-800-643-6931. Again, 1-800-643-6931.
KCAA Radio is proud to announce that the Tri-City Center in Redlands is our new home. We're fortunate to be located among some of the best businesses in the region. Among our neighbors are Ray Chiropractic, Brace Connection Orthodontist, Pain Solutions Medical Massage, Rent-A-Center, MVP Staffing Agency, Jenny Craig, Salon Centric, and many more. The Tri-City Shopping Center is located just off the I-10 between Alabama and the Tennessee exits in Redlands. The Tri-City Center is the mall with a heart.
It's time to make the Tri-City Center in Redlands a regular part of your weekly shopping experience. Tri-City is home to a wide assortment of quality businesses, including the all-new Ocean Aquatics. Check out their variety of exotic tropical fish, along with fish food, accessories, and tanks of all shapes and sizes. The Tri-City Center is located just off of Alabama and the Tennessee exits in Redlands. Visit the Tri-City Center today and find out why it's called the Mall with a Heart.
You're listening to KCAA, your good neighbor along the way.
Father John Reed.
I'll have you know I have the reflexes of a cat and the speed of a mongoose.
Atheist Pastor Luke King.
Yes, Satan? Oh, I'm sorry, sir. You sounded like someone else.
The Gospel of Luke and John.
I have exorcised the demons. This house is clear.
Are you ready for a miracle? Ready as I can be. Are you ready for a miracle? Set you free. Are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready?
KCAA, 1050 AM, 102.3 FM, and 106.5 FM, and online at kcaaradio.com. This is the Gospel of Luke and John. My name is Luke King, your atheist pastor, alongside everyone's favorite Orthodox priest, Father John Reed.
And tonight, which is our final night on this station.
It is.
Oh, my goodness. But you can still reach us at the Facebook at the Gospel of Luke and John,
yes, you
or
can.
on Instagram at Luke John Gospel. That's Luke John Gospel. And you can send in your questions or farewell messages, whatever you want to send in. Our great producer, Tammy, will get those. Or you can call us at 909-792-5222, or the last four numbers of KCAA.
Yes. Did you feel that earthquake last night? / this morning? Did you feel that?
Is that what that was?
Yeah.
I thought my ex-wife was in town.
Yeah. No, the dog woke me up. Tammy slept right through it. She was just sailed all the way through the ground shaking, but I woke up to the dog.
Wow.
It was my first earthquake that I didn't freak out since I've been out here in California. So I've been out here for 10 years, and the very first earthquake that I ever experienced, I didn't know what it was. So by the time it was over, that's when I got scared. But I looked out the window and saw the car shaking and thought, well, that's weird. Seems like there's a large truck driving by. Turns out the ground was shaking. And then the next ones, like there was one.
The aftershocks.
The next earthquake I had or was part of was on my birthday, and I had gone out that night and was, partied a little too hard and fell asleep on the couch. We just bought our TV. It was this new, I think it was like a 72-inch TV, and it was on the entertainment console. And I remember I fell asleep on the couch, and the ground started shaking so much that I jumped off the couch, and my first instinct was to grab the TV because I didn't want it to fall down.
Right.
I cared about it a lot.
Well, I've been through some really large earthquakes. I was here for the Landers of Big Bear Quakes, and I was on the recovery team, the trauma team, that went up and did all the crisis counseling for those earthquakes.
Oh, wow.
So I was actually at ground zero for all the aftershocks. It was just crazy. In fact, I can remember feeling the shake, watching my bookcase cave. It was that bad. And then getting the call, asking me to go up on the crisis team to be the captain of the team. And so I started out at Big Bear, and I did things I've never done before. I talked about hostages, all kinds of stuff in those 3 days. And 24 hours a day, we had the places just start shaking with the aftershocks. It was crazy.
It is the most unsettling. I mean, so in Michigan we have tornadoes. That's our thing. Like if you're going to die in Michigan from a natural disaster, it's either going to be because you froze to death, or there's a tornado that comes and snatches up your house. And you can hide from those, like and at the very least, they're coming. They flash a warning. They tell you, hey, there's a big thunderstorm coming. Tornadoes on the way. And we did tornado drills where we got in the hallway and covered the back of our necks with books, which I don't know what that would have done really if it was a major tornado. But but
you've never watched Harry Potter, huh?
But yeah. But it was like, but here with the earthquakes, like you don't know. Like we could be sitting here right now, and the ground could shake, and I would be underneath this table so fast you wouldn't.
Well, a few years ago, God rest her soul, I was going to visit my sister, and I was taking her a Chevy Nova. I was pulling it behind a U-Haul truck. It was my dad's and my mom's, and when they died, I was the executor of the estate. And so I'm towing it from Phoenix, Arizona to Troy, Illinois. And while I'm still in Missouri, making my way to the motel, I beat the tornado by 10 minutes.
Ooh.
And I'm hearing it on the radio. I'm looking at the green sky clouds, and the lightning's coming, the hail's coming and hitting this thing. And I no sooner get checked into the motel, get in my room, open up the curtain, and all heck broke loose.
Oh man, see, I've never seen one. I don't want to see one. That's not something I ever want to see. But I was, when I first moved out here, I researched the deaths that happened during earthquakes, and I was actually heartened to know that most of the deaths during the earthquakes are because of heart attacks. Because people freak out. So I was like, well, hopefully I don't have a heart attack. But that brings us to what we want to talk about tonight: dying.
Right. Well, yeah. Killer topic.
Where you go, what happens, consciousness, brains, souls, all those kinds of fun things.
Yeah, last couple of weeks, this just seems to be the time for talking about consciousness. I know NPR and one of my heroes in radio, Larry Mantle, and if you're listening, Larry, there's your shout out. He's on NPR, and he's been talking to neuropsychologists and neuropsychiatrists doing some really interesting studies on consciousness. One of these guys actually travels a little bit with Dr. Deepak Chopra, who I'm a fan of, who does a lot of work on where is consciousness. We can't locate it in the brain, yet it's there. And what happens when we die? They talk about the white light experience some people have. Is that just neuron and synapse firing? And they're mistaking that because some people have gotten that same effect from LSD and from other drugs. Yet I can remember I had a near-death experience years ago when I was new in college. I was riding my motorcycle, and I got taken out by someone making a left turn, and I hit their truck at 50 miles an hour, threw me 35 feet from my motorcycle. I can remember hearing the paramedics as they're putting me on the ambulance saying he's not going to make it to the hospital. My next conscious moment, I'm watching them from above working on my body, literally.
Wow.
And then I had the white light experience. I had the sensation of love, and then I heard the voice saying, it's not your time yet. And then I felt myself back in the body and all the pain that came with it. But to this day, it's been an experience that I've never forgotten. In fact, it really made me double down in seminary. But the most interesting experience I had with that was it wasn't a judgmental God. It was very loving. And I got the sense that this love was universal, and it totally changed me as a priest.
See, that's so interesting. I remember reading. I was looking over some actually looking over near-death experiences this week too, and
they're to die for.
And I remember a couple of years ago I was reading a study, and it escapes me where it came from. But one of the questions I've always had about near-death experiences is, like, does a Mormon, when a Mormon has a near-death experience, do they see what is consistent with their theological beliefs when they're alive? When a Muslim has a near-death experience, is it consistent? When a Muslim is having a near-death experience, do they see Allah? When a Hindu is having a near-death experience, do they see Vishnu? When and those kinds of things. And there are studies that suggest that your religious belief pre-death informs your near-death experience when you have it.
I think that's true. I wonder if when Jehovah's Witnesses die, if they see a door they got to knock on. Sorry, kids, I just had to do it. I would be hating myself all night if I didn't do it. love to our JWs. Love to our JWs.
But it's an interesting. I think it's near-death experiences I think are fascinating, and what people see, and the fact that out of all the near-death experiences, only 2 or 3% of them have anything to do with like hell or anything scary. The majority of near-death experiences, even for atheists, are largely either blank or positive. I had somewhat of a near-death experience in the terms of I got stepped on by a bull when I was in 2005 when I rode bulls. That was fun. It was a great time. Riding bulls was a blast. But it was I was pretty touch and go there for a while. When I was reading through the old medical documents, I was like, wow, I almost didn't make that. That's interesting. But I was just out of it. Like, I didn't see anything. I didn't experience anything. I just remember darkness. And I was still a Christian at the time, and I've read, it's interesting that one would think, at least I would think, if a person has these near-death experiences and one particular religion, presumably would be the right one. Let's just say let's say it's Christianity for the sake of the discussion. If a Muslim dies, you would presume that they would see Jesus, or if a Hindu dies, they would see Jesus, or this. So I wonder those things. Like I wonder how that works, in terms of these different religious people and what their near-death experience is.
Well, that's a good point you make, and where I come from, and I think
thank you.
I think from knowing me for a while, I don't believe that there's one right religion. I believe, well, first of all, medically speaking, they've already shown that in our DNA we have a gene that makes us believe that there is something after this, that there's some great thing. Now, that's not just me speaking. There's a number of books that claim this, that show they can't nail down the gene, but it seems to be in our DNA to have a belief that there's something beyond us, there's some type of afterlife, and there's some type of deity. But there's no definition of that. And from the time that man first came on the scene, history has shown, and what we've been able to find in what am I looking for?
I have no idea. Where are you headed?
Geologists.
Well, are you talking about like in the fossil records when they look and there's
they find that they were making signs to deities back then. So when we first came on, we were trying to find some of this stuff.
But that begs the question: is that because is that just the fact that these these earlier humans were trying to find explanations for the natural phenomena that happened that we can now explain? So,
yes.
Take the blood moon, for example. Now we know that the blood moon happens when the moon passes through the Earth's shadow,
right.
Whereas if I was back in the desert in BC days, I might see the red moon and get a little frightened because my experience with red presumably would be blood, and so if I look up and the moon turns red, that would be alarming.
That reminds me of the story when I was maybe 3-4 years old. My two brothers, one is 12 years my senior, the other is 2 years my senior, and it was a full moon night. And where we lived in Ontario, we had one of those sliding glass doors that you could see the moon very well if you're in the living room. And because of the smog, the moon was orange. And so my oldest brother is talking about the monsters that come out when the moon is orange and the lights are out. So they didn't know I'm in the room. And so they're going back and forth trying to see how they can scare one another, who can do the best job of it. And then they left, and I'm in this room all by myself. Look at this moon orange. And I was so scared I couldn't even scream. And finally they said, hey, where's Johnny?
Well, it's I remember, gosh, it was, a couple years ago, I think it was a couple years ago, there were supposed to be 3 or 4 blood moons that all happened within like an 18-month period or something like that. And people were saying, oh, this is the end times. It's going to, it's all going to be over, these 3 blood moons. I'm like,
right.
I mean, I'm looking at it like, okay, maybe back in the day we would have thought this. Like if we were out in the middle of the desert or if we were in a cave, and we looked up and we're like, oh, moon red. Maybe that would have been something. But now we know what causes the blood moon. We know what causes a red moon. We know why there are solar and lunar eclipses. So it sometimes baffles me how, like, we can stand in awe of those things. And I look at the blood moons and I'm like, wow, that is so cool. Especially because on the 31st, we're going to have a blue moon, a blood moon, and the super moon all at the same time.
And you're probably going to be drinking a blue moon while you're watching
that's not a bad idea.
Yeah,
that birthday that I passed out on the couch when I grabbed the TV was a night of too much blue moon.
There you go.
Way to bring that full circle. You didn't even know you were doing that.
No, but it's a great song. Well, we have that DNA in us that makes us curious. The only one I've ever seen that doesn't have that is our current president. Everyone says he has no curiosity about him.
And he's got all the answers.
That's right. But we've always had that curiosity. Now we've been able, and it's because of that curiosity that's in our DNA, is what the scientists are saying, that we do now know what causes that. But from the very beginning, we wanted to find out. And our natural response to things that we don't understand is fear. But once we figure out what it's about, the fear goes away and we can come to really appreciate it.
I understand earthquakes, and I'm still afraid of those, though.
Oh, okay. Well, see, I have no problem with them, but I grew up with them. But I know people who grew up with them who are terrified.
I'm afraid of them in certain circumstances. Like if I was under an overpass, I would be scared in that moment.
Well, that's like being afraid to put your hand in fire. It's just good sense.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So, it's interesting. Consciousness is fascinating because we don't know. Like, and then there's the discussion of animal consciousness. I mean, that's when you talk about the animal rights folks. Like, what is the consciousness of a dog? As an example, different than the consciousness of a bird, and is the consciousness of a cow different than the consciousness of a pig? And you know what? Why don't we talk about that
when we come
back from the break? My name's Luke King. When I left the church, I had no idea where to turn. I had lost my entire worldview. I knew deep down that it was possible to be a secular person and still add value to the lives of others. I just had no idea how to live that way. I read books, I searched for tips and ideas. I wanted to ask for advice, but I didn't even know who to ask. I became frustrated because it seemed like all the resources available were out to prove religion wrong, and that just wasn't my concern. My concern was, how do I live my best life today? Since I couldn't find the guidance I was searching for, I started the Your Atheist Pastor Show to document my journey. I love people. I still want to do good in this world. The only difference is that now I do it without God. I'd love for you to come on this journey with me. Just hop on iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, anywhere podcasts can be found, and type in Your Atheist Pastor. That's Your Atheist Pastor. Welcome to church.
Hello there. Are you tired of handcrafted, award-winning beer in a cozy, family-friendly atmosphere? Of course you're not. You're not a dummy. Sanctum Brewing Company is all these things at once. Nestled in beautiful Pomona, California, Sanctum is independently owned and operated, making delectable poetry by the pint for your enjoyment, bringing you a family-friendly, dog-friendly atmosphere. Enjoy the wonderful views at Sanctum Brewing Company, including warehouses, mountains, and train tracks. Also, we have a pallet wood wall. Yes, we were doing it before it was cool. We're not that hard to find on Google Maps or Apple Maps or MapQuest. Yes, it's still a thing. Sanctum Brewing Company, home to the world's largest selection of 2x4 furniture.
The loss of a loved one is one of the most challenging experiences in a person's life. It's hard to know where to turn to make your loved one's final arrangements. Jesse Ruiz at Personal Funeral Planning in Ontario will treat you and your loved one with the respect you deserve. Jesse served in the Marine Corps in Desert Storm and understands what it takes to provide loyal, personalized, and empathetic service to those who need it most. The families of Michael Jackson, Brittany Murphy, Ed McMahon, and many others have trusted Jesse to provide them with the highest level of service and support. To work with Jesse, call 909-762-4027, 909-762-4027, or visit their website, www.4pfp.org. www.4pfp as in personalfuneralplanning.org. Jesse Ruiz and Personal Funeral Planning, veteran-owned and operated, helping you plan a personal, lasting tribute for your loved one. www.4pfp.org. KCAA 1050 AM, 102.3 FM, 106.5 FM, and online at kcaaradio.com. This is the Gospel of Luke and John. My name is Luke King alongside Father John Reed.
Yes, here on our last show for this radio station. We're going to miss you folks. We hope you're going to miss us.
And if you've had a near-death experience, 909-792-KCAA, 909-792-5222. We'd love to hear about it.
Even if that near-death experience is just from talking back to your spouse.
So animal consciousness.
Yes.
You know, I was asked the question by one of my podcast listeners about why I eat animals and why if basically
because they're tasty.
You know, because I grew up on a dairy farm, so I see kind of the beasts of burden in a different way than some folks do. When I look at a cow, I mean, we raised our cows, we treated them very humanely, and then we ate them. And he asked me, like, well, couldn't you follow that same logic through to like your dog? If you treat your dog well, and one of these days you eat your dog, and like that's sure you could follow that logic through, but I think it brings up an interesting point about animal consciousness and how we view it.
And also culture, because in different parts of the world, they do eat dogs. In fact, when I taught at the Mexicali Police Academy, there was a dog taco stand. It really was dog tacos.
Really?
Yeah, it was.
Was it good? Did you go?
I didn't go, but my partner did.
I would have gone just
and
to try.
All the police department were getting their tacos. They said that it was the best tacos in town, and then the city finally closed them down because they found out they really were dogs he was using.
Wow. And
the police would say, what are you so upset about? He told you what they were before he sold it to you. But, we talked about the consciousness of animals, and I have that sparrow that we rescued. For those of you who don't know the story of Boo, Boo's our sparrow that my son rescued from the truck stop here in Ontario where he's a mechanic. The bird was flying as a baby bird flying through the garage, and a door was closing, and she got caught in the door. And they thought she broke her wing. It turned out that she broke her leg. And so my son sends me a text, hey, Dad, can you take care of this bird if I can catch it? So they caught it. Being a typical mechanic, he put it in a hubcap box, brought it to me. And Gabby and I, with her niece, splinted the leg with a Q-tip and such. I won't go into the whole thing, but we did it the way you're supposed to do it. Well, Boo has become a part of the family. We've had her almost 8 months now.
Boo is terrifying.
Boo is wonderful, but she has become self-aware. She has absolutely become self-aware. I'm not saying that to be cute. This bird has learned how to communicate. She lets us know what she wants. But also, one night, I startled her, and she bit my finger, and she felt guilty the next day. And she did everything she could do to make it up to me. I mean, she really did. Also, she's very intuitive that when I'm really hurting from my arthritis, a couple weeks ago, I was sitting in my chair to do my meditation in a lot of pain, and she sensed it, and she flew onto my rope and started rubbing underneath my chin with her head to comfort me.
So how do you, I mean, because anybody who's a vegan or a vegetarian will hear those stories and think, well, then how could you eat a cow? Or how could you eat a pig? Or how could you eat a chicken? Because you got a bird. So the chicken and the sparrow, they're kind of, the same. They both fly. They both have tiny heads. It's an interesting question. I mean, it really is.
Well, we look at nature. And nature is a series of life and death. And, the tree drops its acorn, the ground eats the acorn, makes another tree. And Native Americans, when they kill livestock, they have a relationship there. They honor it. They thank you for giving its life that they may have life. So there is a relationship. Not everyone's comfortable with that, but when you eat plants, you're killing a plant too.
Right, but I guess some people probably have plants as pets. I think for me, it really comes, and I don't necessarily know if I like this answer, but it's the answer that holds true. I think for me, I view the consciousness of cows and pigs and chickens differently than I view the consciousness of the dog. I mean, I see it as different. Now that might be wrong, but if I really saw, I don't want to eat Gizmo, but if there's no meat there anyway. But if I really looked at it from an objective perspective, or if I was looking at it from looking at my actions and my beliefs, I have to almost come to the conclusion I think I view animal consciousness just a little different than even cow consciousness different than dog consciousness, which might be bad. I don't know if it is or not.
So you're an atheist with dogma.
Yeah, there you go.
I couldn't let that go.
But I think it's an interesting question, and it's I have a listener that he asks me all the time about eating animals because he's a vegan, and
he's just not comfortable with
it. I love it because he makes me think, especially the way he frames the question, because he's like, "Are you against the exploitation of animals? If you are, why do you eat meat?" And it's just kind of it's one of those framing things that just makes you think, "Wow. Maybe I need to dive into that a little bit more."
But you know what? I think if you're not comfortable with it, don't eat it. If you are comfortable with it, eat it. It's up to you. It's an individual thing. I don't think there's a one-size-fits-all in this thing. I don't think it's an either-or answer. There's lots of room. There's lots of room for discussion. And if we learn to honor each other and that we are different about these things, I think we would have a better society.
Well, and that's, we were talking about this before the show started. Everything these days seems to be either or.
Right.
You cannot, any political discussion you run into, any lifestyle discussion you run into, it's either yoga or CrossFit, vegan or you eat bacon every day and you support the factory farming industry. Gun regulation, take everybody's guns away or everybody gets a gun. Restrict immigration or everybody comes in. There's no reasonable. Yeah, well, we don't talk about these things anymore.
Well, even before mixed martial arts. I grew up in the martial arts, and either you studied Kung Fu or you studied karate. Either you studied Aikido or you studied Sansu. And you didn't cross-train at one time, yet my instructor was one of the ones that said, you know what, learn whatever you can from wherever you can. Have a base so you have a place to start from and be really good at that, then add to your arsenal. And if we did that with religion, if we did that with politics, look, there's no question people know I lean left. However, there are also things from Republicans that make a lot of sense too. There's some things I disagree with. When I talk to individuals as individuals, more often than not, we have more things that we agree on than disagree on.
It's very true.
And again, you and I talk about this so often on the show about getting out of who's right and into what's right.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where I wish people could. I look at our congressional leaders and I think, man, I really wish we could just have people talk about these things and not just sit here and bicker back and forth and say, yes, this is the way I want it, or no, this is the way I want it. You've been around America a little bit longer than I have. Wasn't there a time when politicians would actually govern?
Yes, there was, but that was before Citizens United.
What was that like?
It was really interesting because what would happen is, Ted Kennedy talks about in his book, his autobiography, where he would pull up in front of the Senate, he'd look at the building and say, I get to work there. It was a real honor. And he and Barry Goldwater or somebody else would have different ideas, and they would debate all day. Then they'd go have a beer afterwards. They would find a common middle. They would each give up something, and each would gain something, because they both knew they loved America. They had different ideas of how to care for her, and they knew that somewhere in the middle there was an answer, and what was first and foremost was the people. But now it's just about getting elected after getting elected, and the politicians are doing the bidding of their donors, which are not little people like you and I. That's why I'm all about, and you hear me talk about so much, Justice Democrats, because every one of their candidates are not just progressive. They have signed statements pledging to not take any corporate money, only small donations. And I'll tell you, Dianne Feinstein's about to have a primary like she's never had before, where she's probably going to get voted out with any luck.
But I think it's also interesting. Like, I mean, I agree. They're on some level, when most people talk, they find if there's a mutual respect for the person you're talking to, I think most people can come to a point where they agree to disagree, or they can at least have some kind of civil discourse. But I don't think that. I mean, if you look at people's Facebook stuff, you look at some of the way that people talk to each other. You look at after Trump got elected, people would get on planes and be like, yell Trump, and then they incite all these things. Like, there is on some level, what's going on in Washington represents the way that people talk to each other on a daily basis.
Well, they've also learned in Washington, as long as they keep the people fighting, they don't ever have to do anything that's real. That's why we don't have answers for the problems. That's why, they still haven't outlawed bump stocks. They still have done nothing about immigration. They're not going to do anything about these things, because these are what are called hot button issues. That as long as you keep people fighting about this, who's ever on your side of that is going to vote for you, and you never have to get anything done. They don't have plans to fix these things, because it gets them reelected, because they, right towards the election, they start talking about how wrong the other side is, and I'm fighting for you this time. Well, we've been doing this since Ronald Reagan. What's been fixed?
Well, and I'm interested to see, I remember when Bush ran, there was, comprehensive immigration reform was on the list.
Yes, it was.
Still talking about it. I remember, I think it was
Bill Clinton,
I think it was Obama Gore. It was a lot of talk of Social Security. We're going to reform Social Security. We're gonna work on entitlements. We're gonna,
Bush Gore.
Bush. That's right. Yeah, Bush Gore. We were gonna. Thank you for that. It was Social Security. It was entitlements. It was all these kinds of things. And we're talking. Those discussions are going to come back up again. It's like things don't get fixed.
That's right, and that's what keeps them in jobs. And it's really a shame if people start being more educated about this stuff. See, we stopped teaching civics. And
that's true.
You don't have civics, people don't know how the government works. Do you know how many people don't understand that there's 3 separate branches of government?
I aced my government classes.
Yeah.
I was a hero on those.
I was very good at it as well. The thing is, they've taken it out of the curriculum.
Well, the reason that people think that the presidency is important. I don't want to denigrate the presidency, but people don't have an understanding of civics, and that's why they don't vote during midterms. They don't vote for their Congress. They don't vote on these off election years. They just go vote for the president because they think that's the most important, and they don't realize that there are so many changes that happen on the state and local level, and that the president is not there to sign executive orders. The president is there to sign bills or veto bills to make them law.
Right.
That's his role or her role, whoever's there. And it's not their role just to walk in and be like, yes, I think I will sign an executive order today to outlaw this. Because then when the next president comes in, they sign a new one. And then it's just like, this is why we're not a monarchy. But people are so up in arms. We got to get Trump out. Why don't you hold your elected officials accountable and have them passing laws?
Exactly.
They should be sending bills to Trump's desk, not sitting there arguing back and forth and bickering about do we keep the government open? Do we do DACA? Do we do a wall? Get together and fix the problem.
Well, you have Congress blaming the president blaming Congress, and now we're setting policy by tweet, which is a new one, but this didn't happen by accident. This has been building more and more, and we're at a tipping point right now that if we don't do something, then we are going to totally lose democracy as we've ever known it. And I'm not an alarmist. At the same time, we really need to wake up, America.
I think America is waking up, though. I mean, you look at the march that happened last week.
Waking up grumpy.
You look at the people. I mean, you look at some of the folks who are running. I mean, I know of a Muslim woman who's running for city council in Corona.
Good.
I mean, and that is those kinds of things are happening, and I'm interested to see more folks of different religions running for office to see how that goes.
Yes, I am too.
Because when Mike Pence, runs for office, he says he's a Christian, a conservative, and an American in that order. I'm a Christian first, a conservative second, and an American. Or he puts Christian first.
Well, yeah.
And it would be fascinating to know or to see if someone said, "I'm a Muslim first, an American second." If they said that, man, people would freak out.
They would, and that's because the way we've been indoctrinated in this country. Again, separation of church and state. I really don't care what religion the president is. It's not my business. Because what I'm interested in is the action. It's not what you say, it's what you do. You know, my friend Chuck Chamberlain used to say, if you were to ask me my religion, I'd have to say it's the way I live my life. It doesn't matter what I call myself. The way I live my life tells you everything about what I believe. And that's true whether someone says that they're a Christian, and we were talking about this before the show, that where are all these outraged evangelicals with this porn star that was paid off by the Trump campaign, possibly with campaign money, which is against the law, by the way, kids. And they're looking past it because this is their guy who is letting them break laws so that they can grow bigger, because you're not allowed when you're a 501c3 religious to tell people who to vote for. And now Sessions, Pence, Trump, and a certain number of the right wing are trying to do away with that and pretend it doesn't exist.
Oh yeah, and I think that and that goes back to the idea that evangelicals, by and large, they don't care about what you do as long as you're on their side. You can do, as long as you say Jesus, as long as you say religious freedom, as long as you say anti-abortion, those are your big ones. And if you want to throw a little anti-gay in, that'll get you even further.
That's the cherry on top.
So if you put together that evangelical Sunday, you can do whatever you want. You can have as many marriages as you want. You can have as many kids as you want. You can have as many affairs with a porn star as you want, as long as you say Jesus, no abortion. Let's let you give money to political organizations, do all those kinds of things. That's what they care about. We saw it with Roy Moore. You see it with Donald Trump, and I think that's going to be one of these days. I think that's going to be a reckoning for them. I just don't know when.
That's true. Of course, we got totally away from what we were going to talk about tonight.
we were going to circle back and talk about ghosts. So let's do, because we only got a couple minutes. So let's take a break, and then we will talk about ghosts and the supernatural and all that kind of fun stuff when we come back.
I'm in that spirit.
Hello there. Are you tired of handcrafted, award-winning beer in a cozy, family-friendly atmosphere? Of course you're not. You're not a dummy. Sanctum Brewing Company is all these things at once. Nestled in beautiful Pomona, California, Sanctum is independently owned and operated, making delectable poetry by the pint for your enjoyment, bringing you a family-friendly, dog-friendly atmosphere. Enjoy the wonderful views at Sanctum Brewing Company, including warehouses, mountains, and train tracks. Also, we have a pallet wood wall. Yes, we were doing it before it was cool. We're not that hard to find on Google Maps or Apple Maps or MapQuest. Yes, it's still a thing. Sanctum Brewing Company. There will be snacks.
My name's Luke King. When I left the church, I had no idea where to turn. I had lost my entire worldview. I knew deep down that it was possible to be a secular person and still add value to the lives of others. I just had no idea how to live that way. I read books, I searched for tips and ideas. I wanted to ask for advice, but I didn't even know who to ask. I became frustrated because it seemed like all the resources available were out to prove religion wrong, and that just wasn't my concern. My concern was, how do I live my best life today? Since I couldn't find the guidance I was searching for, I started the Your Atheist Pastor Show to document my journey. I love people. I still want to do good in this world. The only difference is that now I do it without God. I'd love for you to come on this journey with me. Just hop on iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, anywhere podcasts can be found, and type in Your Atheist Pastor. That's Your Atheist Pastor. Welcome to church. The loss of a loved one is one of the most challenging experiences in a person's life. it's hard to know where to turn to make your loved one's final arrangements. Jesse Ruiz at Personal Funeral Planning in Ontario will treat you and your loved one with the respect you deserve. Jesse served in the Marine Corps in Desert Storm and understands what it takes to provide loyal, personalized, and empathetic service to those who need it most. The families of Michael Jackson, Brittany Murphy, Ed McMahon, and many others have trusted Jesse to provide them with the highest level of service and support. To work with Jesse, call 909-762-4027, 909-762-4027, or visit their website, www.4pfp.org. www.4pfp as in personal funeral planning.org. Jesse Ruiz and Personal Funeral Planning, veteran-owned and operated, helping you plan a personal, lasting tribute for your loved one. www.4pfp.org.
Something about you makes me feel like you're dangerous from us. Something about.
KCAA, 1050 AM, 102.3 FM, and 106.5 FM, and online at kcaaradio.com. It's the Gospel of Luke and John. I'm Luke King alongside Father John Reed.
Having a wonderful time on our last broadcast on this radio station, and boy, we love to hear you call in or to write in or just send a check or something.
909-792-KCAA, 909-792-5222.
There you go.
Do you believe in ghosts?
Yes.
I don't. I don't.
I've had experiences, and first of all, I'm trained to do exorcisms. I've done exorcisms. I've been dangled by my throat by something invisible over 2 inches off the ground with witnesses there. In fact,
I had a demon cast out of me when I was in college.
I didn't know you were a Republican.
Yeah.
I'm kidding, sort of.
No, it's interesting. It's interesting because one of the things I noticed is that when I stopped believing in demons, demonic things stopped happening. And so I wonder sometimes, it's just kind of like one of those things of, I wonder sometimes, is it sometimes that you believe in the supernatural, so the supernatural happens, or does the supernatural happen and then you believe in it and then you experience more supernatural things?
Well, that's a good question, and that's why before an exorcism is performed, there's a series of psychological tests. There's actual physical given to find out if this is a psychological phenomena, if someone is having hallucinations. But I'll tell you, I had a lady coming to me for counseling years ago, and she says, Dr. Reed, the phone flies across the room, the stove comes on, catches the wall on fire, goes back off, the TV turns on and off. I was going 5150 here, which is a 72-hour hold against your will for psychiatric evaluation. But she says, just check it out and see if I'm right or not. So out of fairness, I did something I normally don't do. I made a house call. I went over there. Look, when I opened the door, the phone literally by itself flew across the room. TV's coming on and off. Stove doing what she said. She had a poltergeist.
See, and that's, I can't say that, I couldn't be like, well, John, that didn't happen because you were there. You saw it. Mm-hmm. I just know that I've never seen anything like that before, and it just makes me wonder. I don't know. It's fascinating because there are plenty of people that believe in it. There are plenty of people that have see UFOs. There are plenty of people that believe have visited by aliens. There are plenty of people that see those kinds of things, and there are plenty of people that throughout their entire life they don't see or experience any of those things.
Well, Gabby could tell you about the haunted house we lived in, and when we first moved in there, we had what sounded like someone was dragging a desk through the attic every night. It would go over where my office in the house was, where the bedroom was, and we knew that there's some rat problems. And we thought, God, what are they pushing around up there? Then we come find out there's no attic up there. It's just a little crawl space, and there's nothing up there. And so we did some stuff that I learned to do as someone who's been trained in exorcisms, for certain prayers to make peace. And the noise stopped. However, and we should give Gabby a microphone. She's over here so she could tell you about what would happen. She would get up at 4 in the morning before she was going to go to work, and she'd be over working on her computer in one of the side rooms, and she thought I was in the kitchen because she would hear the drawers open and close, hear someone walking back and forth. So she'd go to say something to me. I was in bed. Nobody was there. So what was opening and closing the door, taking stuff out of cupboards, and closing the cupboard when there's nobody there.
Yeah, I mean, and that's so. So I wonder, like, why doesn't that happen to everybody? I mean, is it because ghosts only go where people believe they are, or like do they, or are they do they embody? Because I know there's a whole section of demonology and all kinds of different parts of religion that there's this he's probably not the most reputable person to mention at this point, Bob Larson, who's all I don't know if you know who Bob Larson is.
No, I don't.
He's one of these well, now he does exorcisms in like hotel ballrooms, so that's kind of like where he does, but he's really big into he gets the crosses out and hits with the Bible and people go crazy and all that, and there's a whole section of I remember when I was in my undergrad how people were all about if you open yourself up to demons this way and you do this that way and you open yourself up to all kinds of different things. So I wonder sometimes, like, are these for someone who doubts these things, I mean, how do they explain the experiences that they have as compared to the experiences people don't have?
Well, I'll tell you, I used to not believe in these things until I had some experiences. So I was one that was converted into it from experience. When we were moving out of that house, we had a guy who was helping us move. He's a Muslim buddy of mine. And at one point, I saw him throw a bunch of stuff out of this room, and he says, I got to go. A couple weeks later, he came and told me why. He got attacked by whatever it was that was in there.
So what was that? Like, what kind of attack was it? I mean, was it just like a sensation? Because I've been places that feel creepy. You go places sometimes you're like, it looks really creepy over there. I don't want to go there.
There's been that, but again, I gave you this situation where I was literally grabbed by the throat and dangled for a minimum of 30 seconds. That high, for those who can't see, about 2 to 3 inches off the ground. There was witnesses who watched this, and the whole reason I was there, I got called in because this family was being bothered by whatever there was 2 or 3 entities in this one house. I have my suspicions what brought them in. It having to do with methamphetamine, but because it was attacking the children in the house, and they were terrified. One of the people who lived in the house who wasn't doing drugs, who had been sober a number of years, and I know personally because I known him his whole sober time, was picked up from the ground and thrown up to the ceiling across the room by whatever this was. And usually before you go in to do any of this stuff, it's a long process. But because there was children being attacked, I did something very foolish. I went straight up there. It was up in Northridge. I went by myself. And so I did the exorcism on the one. And I'm going around the house doing what's called a cleansing and a blessing of the house with the holy water. I open up the shower door. Something invisible grabbed me by the throat, lifted me straight up. I mean, you can see the fingers in my throat from it. They're watching this, and I'm just dousing with holy water till whatever it was let go.
So is it like a Ghostbuster moment? Like, do you walk in there with the shiny cross and the holy water, and you're like, Father John is here?
Well, much more to it. But there's a lot. Actually, before you go in, there's 3 days of fasting and praying, and there's a lot that goes into it. And you're not supposed to go in with a team less than 3 people. Gabby's gone on one with me where she watched when I started doing the prayers. Chandeliers start swinging and spinning. Things start breaking on shelves because it didn't want to go. And so, yeah, if I didn't personally have those experiences, I'd be saying, yeah, maybe. But I've personally had them. I've had the things thrown at me with nothing there to pick it up and throw it. I've been punched by something invisible. I've had people who stopped doing it because they've had their ribs broken. Different things. Last one I went on, and Gabby was there with me, is the one that stopped me from doing it in the future because I have too many ailments that they can attack. And with my asthma, something grabbed both my lungs and squeezed the air out of me. I could not breathe, and I had to fight for every breath for 3 days afterwards.
So what is that? Do people just call and they're like, hey, we got a thing here. Come get it, or is it like is there like a process that you have to go through?
Yes.
Like, do you have to come in, like anoint the doorpost or something like that, or is it There's
a whole process that takes too long to go through. But if you want to see a movie that's taken from actual stuff, I'll give you 2 movies to look at. The Conjuring, that's taken by fact base that you can research and look up that this was a fact case that took place, and it shows you the process they have to go through before the church will send somebody out. They don't just automatically send somebody out. Like I said, there's a lot of psychological testing, physicals have to be done, all kinds of stuff, and a lot of documentation.
Really?
Yeah.
Physicals and stuff?
Everything. They want to make sure that this isn't a form of schizophrenia. They want to make sure you're not delusional. They want to make sure you're not just high on drugs or
Man,
alcohol.
the Pentecostals will just show up with a bottle of olive oil and a Bible, and that's how they roll, man.
No, in the Roman and Orthodox, it's much different. And another one that's taken from the Protestant point of view, that's a true documented story, is A Hunting in Connecticut. Go see those two movies, and I'll tell you what, these were two that were documented all the way through, verified true stories.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't know. When I was in Zambia, there was all kinds of stuff. I mean, there was all kinds of demonic things, and I remember when I was in college and in the Pentecostal circles, there's all kinds of demons and how you can invite them and how you can get rid of them, and like at-home demon care, almost like how you get rid of them by yourself without calling a pastor or a priest or anything like that. It was fascinating stuff.
Yeah, it really is. And again, I understand why a lot of people don't believe it because they haven't seen it. But just because you've never seen a hot dog doesn't mean people don't ever make hot dogs.
Which are delicious.
That's right. Ghostly so. With a ghost pepper on it.
Ooh, those are hot. I've never had one, but scary. No, yeah. And the funny thing is, like, there are a lot of atheists out there who do still see and believe in the supernatural. I mean, there are some atheists out there who don't think there's a God, but who think that there are some kind of there's some kind of soul or spiritual entity that could be there, and these are typically I would probably lean them more toward probably not they could be atheists too. They're just more open. There's some very closed off atheists who are just like, that doesn't exist. I don't believe it. That's it.
Well, you have Christians that are like that,
That's
too.
true. Well, yeah. I mean, there's plenty of denominations that you tell them you did an exorcism, and they're just going to look at you and roll their eyes like, meh. Like
That's
the
right.
Methodists.
Well, yeah. But once you have one of those experiences, you'll never forget it. My former archbishop lived in the old Warner house from the Warner Brothers. He bought it at one time. And this was back in his days when he was in the banking industry. And they came out and they documented, UCLA sent out a paranormal team. They documented the activity in that house. You would have coins come from nowhere and be pelting people. You'd have books that would fly off the shelf, open and close like they had wings and fly across the room, all kinds of stuff. And all of it is documented, both with video, audio recorder, and from the different scientists making their notes of watching this. So, again, it's one of those things that I can understand if you never have experienced something, it's very easy to poo-poo it, so to speak. But when you have experienced it, you never forget. And as Clint Eastwood would say, a man has to know his limitations. And that's why I don't do them anymore, because I have too many elements that they've discovered that they can attack. But almost every major spiritual system, I didn't say religion, spiritual system, Native American, they've had their experiences with it. They tell you what not to play with. They tell you, what's safe and what isn't. The shamans will come out and say, that's bad juju. Don't do that. You're messing with something. You have no idea what the end result's going to be, and it won't be good.
Yeah, I mean that's a lot of the tribal religions. There's a lot of that in different. I know there's different medallions and different things that people will wear, and I think that the interesting thing when it comes to those kinds of spiritual systems is that a lot of times Christianity will see those spiritual systems as demonic. So they'll even see the good and the bad parts of those spiritual systems as demonic and as all terrible. That's
because if they're not part of our group, then they're no good. And that's really, really anti-Jesus when you get down to the nuts and bolts of it, because Jesus was all about going out and being all-inclusive. That's why Paul went to the Gentiles. It just... we've really gotten far away from the message.
So we've only got a few minutes left, John. Any parting words? Any final things you'd like to say? How can people get a hold of you? What's as this show closes?
Well, of course, on Facebook you can get a hold of us, and I think our Facebook page will be up a little bit, and that will also put you in touch with both Luke and I. But also, I know you have your podcast, and I'm looking at maybe doing a podcast pretty soon. I've had some people come to me and ask me to do that.
There you go.
I have someone who said he's going to teach me how to do it with my phone even. I said,
oh, yeah, you can totally do it with your phone. Yeah,
well, you know me. Yeah, come on, man. I was really excited when I learned how to work the electric pencil sharpener. But you can get a hold of me that way, email and such. So go to our website. It's still up, and you can get a hold of us through that. Send us a little note. But we hope you'll stay in touch and keep up for Luke's podcast, Your Atheist Pastor. And then I haven't named what the new podcast is going to be yet, but stay tuned and give me a couple months because I have a couple projects I have to finish first. And then I will be floating the web pages, I guess.
And you should absolutely buy John's book if you haven't had a chance to do that yet. Close Your Eyes So You Can See Me. It was my first introduction to John before I met John. I was reading his book. So if you've enjoyed the show and you've enjoyed what he has to say, you'll really enjoy the book because it is absolutely fantastic. Don't forget to support our sponsors of the show, Sanctum Brewing Company and Jesse over at Personal Funeral Planning. If you're interested in going to the Logical conference, that's coming up. Logical LA is coming up, I think, in 2 weeks from now.
And, of course, our man of magic, Carlos.
Oh, we got to thank Carlos.
Carlos has gotten us through this, and he was dealing with Luke, who's a real radio professional.
He makes us sound pretty.
And Luke has gone through the radio school and everything. Carlos keeps saying, "Turn on your microphone. Turn on your microphone. don't talk away from the microphone." So he's had to coach me through this whole thing, and he's just been a real wonderful guy. Carlos, we love you, and we thank you for everything you've done for us, and Tammy for being our producer over here and watching us on our Facebook Live and all the different stuff and Instagram, and Gabby getting me here and making sure that I don't say anything that we're going to get a problem from the FCC from. So,
and I suppose our final thank you has to be to you. Those of you that are out there listening, those of you that have enjoyed the show, those of you who have supported it, and those of you who have tuned in every week, and those of you who have called, we thank you so much for doing that. And there will be, we will try to, I'll figure out a way to get the audio and have the audio still available for you to download and different things like that. You can still download it off the KCAA's website, kcaaradio.com. And we appreciate the support that you've given us and all those who contributed to the show starting and contributed to the show continuing. We really do appreciate everything that you've dropped our way.
And just real quickly, there's been a few of you I've met out there in the public. It surprised me when I ran into you and you introduced yourself. Thank you. You had some very kind things to say, and I want you to know that it moved me deeply, and I thank you for being loyal listeners.
So with that, this has been the Gospel of Luke and John. I'm Luke King, your atheist pastor. You can find out a little bit more if you want to hang out and keep talking with me. I'm on Instagram at your atheist pastor or youratheistpastor.org. He's Father John Reed, everybody's favorite Orthodox priest. Thank you all so much for listening.
Be well.
KCAA Loma Linda, 1050 AM, 106.5 FM, and now 102.3 FM.
This segment of programming sponsored by Cybertime Network